Hello, my name is Bill Hines and I am the project manager for PCiRoads of St. Michael, Minnesota. Many of you may be new to the design, build, construction projects. They are becoming a significant element in the future of our industry. The goal of this video is to orient each person involved in this project on their personal responsibilities in three distinct disciplines: safety, environmental awareness, and quality construction. Quality awareness and its associated training is designed to remind each of us when working on this project that we all have a personal responsibility to assure the plan specifications are met in building the best project possible. By adhering to the quality process procedures, we will deliver a design-build project that will be safe, environmentally sound, and of the highest quality to the project owner, MnDOT, and to the traveling public. Environmental awareness and its associated training is becoming an increasingly important aspect in our industry as well. PCI requires all visitors, workers, and vendors to know and understand the personal environmental responsibility that they each have to this project. It is a personal responsibility of everyone on the project to adhere to the laws and regulations set forth to protect our environment for generations to come. Safety training is a continual process and the responsibility of all subcontractors to provide the proper training for their employees. PCI requires all subcontractors to show documentation of training for all employees and requires strict adherence to all safety policies. Each of us is responsible to one another to create a safe work environment and a culture of safety for those working on the project as well as for the traveling public. As the project manager, I believe each of us is personally accountable to build and present a product of the highest quality, one that is environmentally responsible and certainly the safest project we can provide for ourselves, our co-workers, the traveling public, and especially for our families. Please enjoy the upcoming presentation and take ownership of these three disciplines: safety, environmental, and quality. Please feel free to comment on these topics as we continually work together to improve the design-build process. Thanks.
The design-build construction manager for this project is Rachel Wiedig. PCiRoads is dedicated to providing MnDOT with a project that is designed and constructed in accordance with the Trunk Highway 2 Erskine Concrete Design-Build Project Conform Contract. Our goal is a project that is safe, buildable, environmentally sound, maintainable, durable, and functions for the traveling public. To accomplish the above goals, we are committed to emphasizing the importance of a quality project to all project personnel. The quality management system establishes quality management processes and procedures, integrates quality goals of design and construction, defines standards and procedures for quality management, assigns the responsibility for specific quality management functions, establishes a process where quality is built into the product. All persons working on this project are responsible for project quality. Success will be defined as providing a quality project, providing the understanding of quality, and project certification and acceptance. Responsibilities. Contractor and all individuals working on the project are responsible for the construction quality of the project and for complying with the project scope of work and their quality manual. MnDOT is responsible for performing construction quality acceptance verification testing and inspection and auditing of the contractor's management system. What is project quality? Constructing a well-designed plan means building according to the Release for Construction Plans, or RFC. Field Design Change, FDC, is a tool for correcting plan errors and making changes as necessary to match field conditions and documenting the changes. Examples can be moving catch basins to work around conflicts found in the field, moving rebar locations to allow for better placement, the addition of a cutoff drain to intercept water from a sand seam. To ensure building quality, all construction must adhere to MnDOT specifications and standards. All field and laboratory testing must be conducted and reach the minimum number of passing tests. Failed tests do not count towards this minimum number. Certify supplier material quality standards prior to incorporation of the material. Follow RFC plans. Communicate plan errors and resolve them at the appropriate level. Understanding of quality. This means the owner knows a quality product has been provided, and this is as important as quality itself. Quality products must reach the minimum number of passing tests. Testing frequency is contractual. The minimum number of tests to be taken is not optional. Failed tests do not count as a test. Any failing are documented and resolved. Tools for providing understanding of quality include allowing for testing and inspection of all products to assure quality status. Quality incentives are in place to provide a superior product. An openness to communicate with the owner, MnDOT, helps facilitate understanding of quality. The quality management process will perform sufficient inspections to assure compliance with specifications and the MnDOT schedule of materials control. This includes assure that all personnel performing work on the project have the necessary experience, certifications, skills, education, and training to perform work affecting project quality. Maintain testing facilities compliant with MnDOT testing requirements. Document purchase, receipt, storage, and protection of the materials on the project. Testing and inspection records are to be maintained and made available to MnDOT. Documentation and resolution of non-conforming work. Monitor post-design changes working with the construction team, inspection staff, and designers with the development of as-built drawings. The foreman is the most important component of project quality. They must make sure that construction goes according to plan and specification, including adherence to MnDOT specifications and standards. Achieve passing material test results by knowing all material type and placement. Using the right materials in the right place. Request testing when needed or appropriate. Monitor moisture and density control throughout construction. Identify potential conflicts in plans for potential FDCs. A critical activity point is a specific point in the construction process at which further activity associated with the deliverable is suspended until formal acceptance of the interim product is obtained. Subexamples include subgrade density and tolerance is checked prior to placement of aggregate base. Aggregate base density and tolerance is checked prior to paving. Concrete forms and reinforcing steel checked prior to concrete placement. Foreman will review critical activity point requirements with the critical activity point manager prior to verification inspection. They will correct any areas with failing test results and correct any items not meeting project requirements. Some examples would include rebar placement, loose rebar, soft areas in the subgrade or base. Foreman will also communicate with the critical activity point manager and MnDOT verification. The critical activity point release form must be signed off and accepted prior to the next phase of construction. Critical activity points must be signed off and accepted by the following: Design Build Team Critical Activity Point Manager, CAPM, Design Build Team Foreman in charge of the activity, MnDOT Verification Representative. All must agree that the critical activity point requirements have been met. Materials delivered to the project are a critical activity point and must include the appropriate documentation prior to unloading. They also require inspection by the CAPM or quality inspector prior to incorporation into the project. Remember, quality is everyone's responsibility. The success of this project will not only be measured by how well we reconstruct the highway, but how well we meet our environmental requirements. As a condition of the project, we have committed to protecting the environment throughout construction. These commitments require permits and an adherence to the condition of those permits, including wetland permits and the NPDES permit for sediment and erosion control from the MPCA. These agencies and others will inspect the sites. Workers will be informed during toolbox training as to how to maintain compliance to the regulations for specific work activities. In order to protect the project and meet environmental commitments, we will be installing various erosion and sediment control best management practices, or BMPs. Erosion control BMPs are the first layer of defense. It's easier to stop erosion than to try to capture soil particulates once they start moving in water. Temporary erosion controls will include temporary seed and straw mulch or hydromulch, maintaining the existing vegetation for as long as possible, and if needed, using plastic tarps to protect the soils. Permanent erosion controls include turf and erosion control blankets. Perimeter controls are the last line of defense. Perimeter controls will consist of silt fences, inlet protection, filter logs, and stabilized berms. All perimeter controls must be installed properly and maintained. Not all of these controls are done at the same time and may be implemented throughout the stages of construction, especially at a bridge site. Different controls can be done numerous times over the same area. You must not drive over or damage an area that has an erosion control blanket in place. Work with your supervisor if you need to enter these areas. All drainage ways that carry water off of the project must be stabilized within 24 hours of completion, so proper staging is needed. Temporary stormwater management is how clean water is kept clean as it goes through the site. Water bypass will be needed if concentrated flow passes through a work area. If dewatering is needed, filter devices such as crushed rock sumps must be used on all inlet pipes. Energy dissipators must be used on the downstream side to not cause erosion to the receiving streams. There is no one-size-fits-all solution for dewatering, but all solutions must meet the goals of the permit. Dewatering must be done correctly with no shortcuts taken. Remember to stay within work areas and not drive outside of permitted areas. If you mess up an area, you must fix it. When in doubt about the area you are working in, make a phone call or talk to your supervisor. Dust control is a concern on all job sites. There is a scraper working in this picture. Can you see it? Why do we need to control fugitive dust? First, it's bad for your health. It's also bad for the public's health. It creates nuisance conditions. And it's the law. If dust becomes a problem in your area, contact your supervisor so water can be brought on site to keep soils moist. Spills are a major problem as they impact water quality. It is easier to prevent a spill than to try to capture it once it happens. If a spill does happen, contain it as quickly as possible. Spills must be corrected immediately and notifications made. If the spill is 5 gallons or more, contact the environmental compliance officer, who will report the spill to the state duty officer. Keep track of how much material was spilled. Subcontractors must provide spill kits and notify all employees as to where they are available. Spilled material must be handled correctly. Know the requirements of your employer's hazardous waste plan and reporting requirements. The easiest way to prevent a spill is to put oil-containing materials and any other chemicals in secondary containment or covered storage. Here we have drums on proper pallets or in secure containers. Concrete and cement management is also a permit condition. Concrete washout must be done carefully and no concrete or slurry water spilled on the ground. All concrete washing is done into lined or metal tubs. Contaminated materials. Contaminants to look for include petroleum-contaminated soil and groundwater from old spills, burn pits from old homesteads or illegal burning, treated wood on guardrails, lead in bridge-bearing plates, asbestos-containing material. Please note, do not touch asbestos-containing materials. An abatement contractor will do the removal. Proper handling of contaminated materials is covered in the Contaminated Materials Management Plan. We just talked about known or suspected contaminants, but what about unknown materials? Here are some things to look for. Stained soil or stressed vegetation, which could indicate petroleum or a solvent spill. Unusual odors or vapors, which could indicate wastes in soil or water. Oil sheen in water or puddles. Buried debris in the soil or illegal dump sites. If we encounter contamination, follow the Contaminated Materials Management Plan. Use some common sense, like washing your hands before eating and drinking. For extra caution, change your clothes when you get home. If you find something unexpected, stop work. Secure the site. Call your site supervisor immediately. If contamination is found, we will follow the instructions of MnDOT's environmental consultant. Some precautions include installing inlet protection and perimeter controls before digging, so nothing gets away, placing contaminated soils on 10 mil poly and covering them, and following all proper material handling and disposal. The consultant will take samples for testing. Work will not be permitted to continue until testing is complete. It is understood that construction is noisy, but you are required to make every effort to keep noise levels down, including provide temporary noise shielding for noise generators near sensitive areas. Check the condition of equipment mufflers and have it repaired as needed. Use OSHA-approved backup alarms. Use a one-way haul traffic pattern to reduce the need for backing up. Strictly enforce a no-slam tailgates rule. The unexpected. What should you do if you find something unexpected on a job site? Stop work, secure the site, call your site supervisor who will contact the environmental compliance officer. Work cannot proceed until the all clear is given. The environmental compliance officer on this project is Tony Luft. The project's environmental compliance efforts are required by federal and state laws and permits, as well as PCiRoads' commitment to delivering a quality project in an environmentally sound manner. The success of this project requires the cooperation of every person on the site. For PCiRoads projects, it is each person's individual responsibility to be familiar with all safety and health practices outlined by the respective company's safety manual and plan. Subcontractors are required to educate and train all employees and visitors before they enter the site. Subcontractors are responsible for providing safe working conditions and procedures and perform work in accordance with all applicable laws and regulations, the subcontractor's accident prevention program, and contract specifications. All employees will be required to coach each other and visitors on the importance of safe operation and enforce the provisions of their safety policies. Conduct daily inspections of their work areas and operation to identify, and if needed, correct and document unsafe work practices or conditions. Supervisors must investigate all accidents to determine cause and corrective measures. Supervisors are strongly encouraged to fill out safety pre-task plan cards and complete a weekly site safety checklist. Supervisors must also assist in the development of job hazard analysis for each major phase of work and for all types of operations that have not been previously analyzed. All work operations must be performed using good judgment in compliance with OSHA regulations and all health and safety requirements. Subcontractors must inform PCiRoads of any hazardous conditions created by their operations. Safety is everyone's responsibility. To ensure your safety, proper PPE is required at all times. At a minimum, employees must wear a hard hat, high visibility vest, and work boots while in all work zones. You can help prevent accidents and injuries before they start by staying alert at all times, by being aware of your surroundings and situations that may cause or lead to accidents or injuries. Immediately notify your supervisor of all unsafe work conditions or acts. All unsafe conditions and hazardous situations must be corrected immediately. Fighting or horseplay will not be tolerated. Safety meetings and training. Safety meetings with all supervisory personnel will be conducted by or at the direction of the project manager to review accident prevention efforts and results, along with safety policy and procedures pertinent to the work being performed. Supervisors will hold toolbox or tailgate safety meetings with their crew to discuss procedures, suggestions, past accidents, and educational materials. Additional meetings may be held when there are crew changes or significant changes in job condition. This training will be documented and electronically submitted on a weekly basis to the project manager. For operations where more specific training is required by law or regulation, subcontractors must provide their employees additional training and document accordingly. Subcontractors will also participate in safety meetings held by PCiRoads when work within the scope of their subcontract is in progress. A record of safety meetings and safety trainings will be submitted electronically to the project manager on a weekly basis. It is the responsibility of all subcontractors, supervisors, and foremen to properly train their employees and make them aware of any and all hazards related to road and bridge construction. Proper training must meet MnDOT and OSHA requirements. Health and physical information. Employees should be physically capable of doing their jobs. Be sure to keep well hydrated and be aware of the changing environmental and work conditions around you. No person will knowingly be permitted on the job while under the influence of any substance, including alcohol, illegal drugs, controlled substances, and prescription or over-the-counter medications. Subcontractors are required to provide first aid material at the worksite. Check with your supervisor as to where these materials are located before work begins. And at least one employee per subcontractor must be trained in first aid and be available at all times to render immediate treatment. Report all accidents, injuries, and illness to your supervisor immediately, regardless of how small or minor they may seem. Please note that immediately means the same day the injury occurred. If an employee is injured on the job, that employee's immediate supervisor must complete a first report of injury form and, if needed, a claims report, and turn it into the project office on the same day the injury occurs. Accidents and injuries must also be reported to the project safety manager immediately. Please note the medical services available for this site. These will be posted in the main field office and should be regularly reviewed and discussed at the toolbox safety meetings. Safe work practices, personal protective equipment. All employees must be properly clothed while on any PCiRoads worksite. This may include ANSI approved hard hat and vest, proper footwear, proper hearing protection and protective eyewear, high visibility traffic vests, and full-length pants and a shirt with sleeves. Also, wear gloves if needed. Daylight operations require a minimum of a hard hat and high visibility vest and work boots. Nighttime operations require a minimum of hard hat, high visibility vest, and pants with reflective materials and work boots. When needed, all subcontractors must develop and implement a fall protection plan in accordance to OSHA standards on fall protection. Approved respirators must be worn when operations or conditions create hazardous levels per OSHA standards. Employees required to wear respirators must have received respirator use training, fit testing, and an annual medical evaluation. Safe work practices, water hazards. When working over or near water, U.S. Coast Guard approved personal flotation devices must be worn at all times. The vest must be completely fastened by zippers or belts. A ring buoy with at least 100 feet of attached rope must be placed adjacent to the water where the danger of drowning exists. And a boat with the proper equipment must be placed at water's edge per OSHA standards. Please refer to OSHA's guidelines for working near water hazards. Material handling. Proper lifting and material handling must be followed at all times. Subcontractors must train their employees on proper lifting and material handling techniques. Manual heavy lifting should be avoided whenever possible through the use of power equipment. PCiRoads requires the proper use of power equipment to move and lift materials. Hazardous materials must be transported in such a manner to reduce risk of spills or contamination. All hazardous materials must be properly marked and secured at all times. Please note all requirements for handling hazardous materials. No work activities or processes are allowed within 50 feet of the track center line while trains are passing through the worksite, unless specifically authorized. Personnel shall always, where possible, stand at least 20 feet back from the tracks to prevent injury from flying debris or loose rigging. Also, personnel shall observe the train as it passes and be prepared to take evasive action in the event of an emergency. Personnel should not walk, stand, or sit on the rails. As the rail surface can be extremely slippery, personnel must step over the rails when crossing tracks. Personnel shall also be aware railroad ties can be slippery and that railroad ballast can shift while walking on top of it. Personnel shall not follow the track with any piece of equipment without a CP flag person and proper protection. Certain projects will require the assistance of a qualified flag person. The decision as to where flag persons are required rests with CP. 1 week advance notice is required before entering railway property so that flagging and protection requirements may be determined and arranged for. Personnel shall not move equipment across the tracks except at established road crossings or unless under the protection and authorization of a CP flag person, and only if the job site has been properly prepared for such a move. Tracked equipment will require a CP flag person anytime railroad tracks are crossed. If a railroad flag person is to be required, contractors must notify the construction manager in writing a minimum of 30 days in advance of the start of the work. General workplace safety. When arriving on a work site, park your personal vehicle as directed by your supervisor. Keep clear of the traveling public and other contractors' work zones. If traveling occurs in the construction zone, a safety strobe compliant with MnDOT specs or emergency flashers at the least must be on. This is very important at night. Observe all warning signs and tags posted on the job site and any equipment. These signs identify hazards that could cause accident or injury. All employees must be familiar with the globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of chemicals, or GHS, commonly known as MSDS. Be sure to wear all required PPE and communicate with vehicle and equipment operators to be sure they know where you are. Do not assume they see you. Also, keep your area clean, avoid all spills, and take immediate action to clean them up. Understand and follow all reporting procedures for hazardous material spills. Tool and equipment safety. Be sure to follow all safety requirements for tool and equipment operation found in your employer's policies. General safety includes, before using any tool or piece of equipment, check to be sure it is in safe operating condition. Only use tools and equipment for their designated purpose. Equipment operators are responsible for the safe setup and operation of the equipment. Be sure to follow all lockout-tagout policies in your company's safety manual. Vehicle and equipment operation safety. Be sure to follow all safety requirements for vehicle and equipment operation found in your employer's policies. Wear seatbelts at all times, including operators and all passengers, and only ride in approved areas of vehicles or equipment. Be aware of power lines, especially those that are low-hanging, and incorporate any pre-planning necessary when working in and around power lines.
This is especially important while working at night.
All trucks rated as commercial vehicles can only be operated by employees who possess a valid commercial driver's license, or CDL. Vehicle operators should never work under or near boxes without safety jack stands in place. All crane operators will be required to have an applicable CCO certification for the cranes they are operating. All vehicles and equipment with obstructed views to their rear must have audible backup alarms operational. Public safety. It is important to remember to keep the public safe on this or any work site. This job is in a high traffic area where cars can break down. Always be on the lookout and know what to do should an unexpected person be on the job site. Great care should be taken when working in and about traffic. Adequate traffic control must be in place whenever work activity will impact public traffic ways. Please refer to your employee's safety plan for working with public traffic. All traffic flaggers must be MnDOT certified and follow the requirements set forth by MnDOT for flagging and traffic control operations. If it becomes necessary to delay, detour, or otherwise inconvenience the public, every effort will be made to do so as courteously and safely as possible. If necessary to operate on existing roads outside the construction area, all necessary permits must be obtained by the subcontractor from the appropriate public or private authority. When excavation is needed, you must contact Gopher State 1 at least 2 business days before an excavation occurs. Send locate tickets to utility operators with underground facilities near your dig site. Please note, subcontractors are responsible for their own locates. If a gas line is ruptured, call 911 immediately. Contact the utility, cordon off the area, and begin an evacuation. Contact the project manager immediately for all utility hits. Visitors will not be permitted in the work area without clearance, unless accompanied by proper escort. Visitors must complete all proper training per subcontractor policies. Visitors will wear appropriate personal protective equipment.
If you have any questions concerning safety, environmental, or quality requirements, please contact the appropriate person, who can be found on this org chart.
All subcontractors are required to document that each employee has reviewed this orientation and is properly trained for their work functions before they are permitted on the work site.
Upon reviewing this video, documentation must be submitted to the field office. Documentation must be submitted by using the Contact PCiRoads form on the PCiRoads Erskine 2019.com webpage.
When submitting using this form, you must include your name and company name. At the field office, you must pick up a completion of orientation sticker and affix it to your hard hat to signify adherence to this requirement prior to being allowed on the site.